Great. So my name is Marcus Hurt. In a previous life, I was one of the founders of Appeal, the company that created the JRockit virtual machine. And currently, I am the team lead for Java Mission Control. And I'm really sorry to say, but due to some circumstances that I can't affect, I'm going to have to amend this talk's title a little bit. So JRockit Mission Control is not quite dead yet. Long live Java Mission Control soon. And that is the only time you're going to see me do an animation in PowerPoint, and that is how frustrated I was. Anyways, so this talk is going to be about JRockit Mission Control and how it will be replaced by Java Mission Control. And I'm going to talk about what Mission Control is and why you should care and why it is going to be replaced. I'm also going to do demonstrations of both JRockit Mission Control 4.1 and Java Mission Control 5.2. And I'm also going to show you some ways that you can use these APIs. And people are probably not going to be too happy about me showing this to you, but I'm going to do that anyway. And I'm also going to do some demonstrations about new tools in Mission Control. Okay. And since I am going to do... Okay. Brief break. Hello? Is it broken? Okay. Yeah. So since I will be doing some forward-looking statements, I need to have this disclaimer slide. It's mandated by Oracle. And it basically says that anything I say is subject to change, and you shouldn't be making any purchasing decisions on that information. So, JRockit Mission Control is still the profiling time it's the production time profiling tool suite for JRockit. So the idea is that you should be able to use these tools in production, which means that we are focusing very heavily on having a very low impact. So the overhead is very low when using these tools, and the way we can keep the overhead quite low is that we have built the tool into the JVM, basically. We are piggybacking on the JVM. We are utilizing information that is already being collected by the runtime, and we have high-performance implementations of the things that we can't get straight off the runtime. In JRockit, we could dynamically enable and disable this. So you could just hook up, do whatever you wanted to do with the tools, and then disconnect, and everything went back to normal. There is a client available for JRockit Mission Control. It's built upon Eclipse RCP. It has a built-in GUI editor, so you can modify the tooling itself, and you can run it as a standalone tool or inside of Eclipse. So in JRockit Mission Control, there were three main tools. It was the management console, which is arguably one of the better JMX consoles available. And there was the flight recorder, which is a built-in event recorder in the JVM. You can think of it as a data flight recorder, like the black box of an aircraft. It records what is going on in the side of the JVM, and once something happens, you can go back in time and look what was actually going on. And this was the main JRockit profiling tool. And then we had, a tool which wasn't very aptly named called Memleak. It doesn't leak memory; it finds memory leaks, It's really an online heap analysis tool. So you can do much more than just hunt for memory leaks with it. So I thought I'd give a brief history of this so you can see where we're coming from. So in 1998, Appeal started developing JRockit. And we wanted to become Sun Java licensees. And at that time, it included, of course, giving a lot of money to Sun, but also you needed to state a added value for your runtime. You couldn't just say that, hey, we want to make a runtime, you need to have some added value. And we said performance. So we're going to have better performance than HotSpot. And that didn't go over too well with some camp. So they came back and said, performance is not added value. And then we needed to come up with something else. And that's how, the precursor to Mission Control really started out. We said that, well, we can do monitoring of the runtime. So that was the first prototype, really. Then in 2002, BA acquired Appeal. And there were some integration pains. There were a lot of good things. We got better tooling. We became eventually the default for running WLS. And we delivered some world-class performance benchmarks. But, it was a difference in culture. We had all these. The office was plastered with these demotivator posters. Have you seen those? I mean, they're really quite funny. It takes a concept and then writes some really sarcastic words about them, and things like incompetence. When you earnestly believe you can compensate for lack of skill by doubling your efforts, there is no end to what you cannot do. And we had things like, procrastination. Hard work often pays off later, but laziness always pays off now. And we had one guy that actually did their own. So we had JRockit, write once, crash everywhere. So it was a lot of fun. But our new American management was like, oh no, morale will go down the drain, so we need to take these away instantly. So that was kind of fun. Anyways, we became more of a mainstream JVM, and in 2008, I think, Oracle acquired BA Systems. And there were some integration pains again. I mean, the organizations needs to merge, and it really does take longer than you think every time. And but everybody, at least I started thinking, Oracle is so big, so now we can just focus on technology, right? I mean, nobody can buy Oracle. And then the Sun acquisition came, so yet another merger. And there were more integration pains again, and there was a decision to merge or converge the JRockit and HotSpot JVMs. Or in the immortal words of Dilbert's point-ahead boss, combine them and just do the one. So we took JRockit and HotSpot, and we began building a best-of-breed JVM. And if you look at it, we have already started delivering. So there are some good things already in the 7U4, for instance, JDK. We have the J command, which is a command line utility in bin that you can use to send diagnostic commands to running instances of the JVM, locally running ones. Quite useful. We have the flight recorder in 7U4. Most people don't know about it because we haven't really delivered mission control, and I'm going to talk about that later. We are getting the native memory tracking, we're getting rid of the permgen, and there are some other nice things that are coming quite soon. But if you look at it, a lot of these technologies are basically used by or consumed by mission control. So if we had flight recorder in 7U4, why haven't we released mission control yet? And we have released, actually. We have released the 5.0 release in April, the 5.1 release in August, but we only made them available to WebLogic Server customers. On my Oracle support it's available. And you might think that is unfair, but the reason is really that we don't have enough of the event integration in the HotSpot JVM yet to release it. So if we released it now to you guys, you would go, but there is nothing there, and just be very unhappy about what mission control is. So we will release eventually, but we will release when the critical events are there available in the HotSpot JVM. The reason we release it internally still, and for Oracle, is that there is a third-party producer that is producing events and recording them in our event recorder for WebLogic Server. So WebLogic Server users can still benefit greatly from using mission control already. Was that what you were going to ask?
It was just a quick question.
Yeah, sure.
Flight recorder in 7U4, is that an open JDK or just in the proprietary JVM?
Proprietary JVM. Yeah, in the HotSpot JVM. In the Sun JDK. So Flight Recorder 101. It is a high-performance event recorder, and there are a few different kinds of events that you can record. There is duration events. They have a start and stop time. There is an instant event, which just has a time when the event occurred. And there is a requestable event, which is basically one that is polled on a regular basis. And the reason I'm saying this is I'm going to show some code so you can start using this yourselves, even if it's not supported yet. They produce binary recordings. So what you get from the flight recorder when you do recording is a binary recording. And the good thing or the different thing about this binary recording is that it is consists of chunks. And the chunks are self-contained and self-describing. So everything you need to be able to resolve constants or whatever inside of the chunk is available in this chunk. And everything you need, all the metadata you need to make sense of the data in the chunk is also available in the chunk. So you can sort of think of it as an MPEG stream. You have a keyframe and then you're good to go. So that's different from most logging frameworks. Okay, so the inner workings of Byte Recorder. The focus is on extremely low overhead. So we are both using data already being gathered by the runtime. So we don't need to go probe the heap or something else to gather the data. We just piggyback on the mark face or something similar to get the data. We have a high performance recording engine. So there are a lot of different things we do. One example might be we are using the timestamp counters in the Halo emulator processors to do the timestamping instead of doing current system time nanos, which takes a whole lot of time. So that's one difference. And we can do this for dual socket configurations as well, not just single ones. So if anyone tells you that it can't be done, it can. We have third-party events. So WebLogic server events are already available. We also have Glassfish events on the way. And you can add your own events. And this is not supported. This is probably not going to be that readable to you guys. Okay. Anyways, what you do when you want to start recording things, you need to set up your own producer. And you do that by simply giving it a name, a description, and a URI that just needs to be unique. And then you need to have a class for your events, and you just use annotations to get the metadata that you want into there. And then you just create your event like, my event, your event, event begin, do your stuff, event end, and event commit it to the Byte recording engine. So if you can't read this, you could probably pick up the presentation from the internet and see how it's done. It's very, very simple. And if you guys are getting worried that we're actually creating new event objects there is a version of the API where you're actually reusing that event object, but you need to make sure that you're doing it thread safe. It can't have any risk there. Okay? So I thought I'd do some demos. The first demos, if you have seen me demo Mission Control before, you're probably going to recognize. There is a new demo, a very Smurfy demo that I did last night. So that one you will not have seen ever. Okay, so one thing you want to do when you profile is, of course, to find out where you're spending the most time executing Java code. And that is very simply done in Mission Control. So this is what it looks like, the GUI. And you can see here that we are using the Java util package, linked lists, and the hot one seems to be linked list contains. So as you can see here, we're doing a lot of contains checks in linked lists, and we're calling contains from count similars in the class initiator. And I'm just going to jump there. So this is what we seem to be doing. We have two of these initiators, and one of them goes through all their end of elements and checks if the other initiator also has them. Okay, and count how many of them that are similar. And these seem to be unique integers, right? So just by changing this to something else, we can make this go much faster. So it's ordo n if you do a linked list contains check. And there's something that can change to that is constant and average. So if we go to hash set, things are going to go much, much faster, right? So that's one example. It's very easy to find the hot methods. The next one is the flip coin of this. So we have a lot of latencies. We have a massively multi-threaded application here. I'm going to show you that it is later. But we can just, it's struggling along at 40% of the CPU load. So what we were expecting from this application was that it would saturate the CPU, but it isn't. So looking at the events, we can see that, okay, so something is definitely going on here. If you look here, you can see that we're actually doing things in a sequential fashion, really. And all these Salmon events are Java blocked, so we do have some sort of synchronization issue here, most likely. And the easy way to do this is to just look at the contention, and we can see that there's a lot of contention in this logger class and the log method. So what we probably want to do is to prove also that it is the same instance of this logger that we're doing. And from my blog page, there is a nice plugin that you can download that gives you a nice GUI for this, but you can do that here as well. Just go build a histogram on the Java blocked monitor address. Here you go. It's just one single instance that is being blocked on all the time. So let's see what's going on here. I'm going to open that method. And we can see that we have a single, okay, so this is obviously just an example. We're doing a sleep here to simulate that the login actually takes some time. But everybody seems to be sharing this logger, and there are several different ways we could fix this. We could, there is a default constructor here, so we could just cheat and give every thread their own logger. We could remove the synchronized keyword if we weren't protecting something inside. We could not log. That is always an option. And you shouldn't be laughing about not logging, because actually a very big customer got a lot more performance by doing some sensible logging. Let's look at what this looks like if we do change this. So this, we should do it before and after. That's always nice. So before, we were struggling along at 40%, and now we actually have full saturation of the CPU. And if we look at the events, let's look at the event graph here. Let's get some more space. This is what it looked like before, and this is what it looks like now. Voila. So no synchronization going on whatsoever, and everybody's happily running around executing Java code like they should be. Okay, so there are going to be a lot of examples, well, a few examples now. So if you do have any questions, just raise your hand and I'm gonna answer them. So another thing is garbage collection. So we have this application which seems to be doing quite a lot of garbage collections. Actually, it's really what it's doing. It's doing garbage collections. So we are obviously creating a lot of transient objects here, lots and lots and lots, and we want to know why. So we can go to the allocation tab and see that we are allocating integers, but we don't have that many data samples because, well, in this particular example, I set the trigger for when to record this pretty high. So we might want to look at the GC general tab as well, just to see that the GC reasons also come from the same spot. And we can see that this value of method in the integer class is causing a lot of allocation. So hey, why? And it's being called from this allocator go method. So let's go to the allocator. And here we can see that it's doing a lot of contains checks. So the contains check on the map takes an object. And this data class that we have is using a primitive int. So every time we're trying to look up one of these objects by the primitive int, we're going to autobox it into an integer, and an integer object will be created. So, saving these 8 or 12 bytes, depending on architecture, from the object header here is not a very good idea, because we're going to be creating a lot of transient objects everywhere. So what we can do is, of course, change this to an integer object instead, and well, we can look at what the application how it will behave if we do exactly that. Just change that field to an integer object. Well, sorry, we need to change the return type as well from that method. So two changes. And what's going to happen then? Well, we want to see the GC graph, and there are no garbage collections anymore. So quite a bit of, well, there are 4, but those are because of other reasons. So much better behavior. And I told you about the WebLogic server integration, right? So here's a recording from WebLogic server.
So the features you're showing, are those on the JRockit or the current HotSpot?
Okay, so what I'm showing you right now is from JRockit recordings, because that's where we have all the J2SE events. This particular one you could actually do on the HotSpot.
But not the thread contention on the memory one?
Nope, sorry, not yet. But we're getting close. Due to revenue recognition issues, Oracle mandates that I can't tell you when. So this is a recording from WebLogic Diagnostics Framework. And as you can see, there are quite a lot of useful data. Since I'm not a J2EE guy, I can't even begin to tell you what these are. You probably know much better than me. But I recognize these as being SQL statements, and I recognize them as being listed by average duration they actually took, and that has to be interesting, right? I can also see servlet invocations here, which is probably also quite interesting. And the thing you can do is you can always, so there is a Boolean set operation that you can do with events all over the flight recorder GUI. So, and there is something called the enterprise context ID in WebLogic, which is part of every operation that is going on in WebLogic server. So if I, for instance, took this servlet and added the events that have a matching enterprise context ID, I will get all the events that are related within that same transaction. And then we can start looking at them. So here we have the event log. Now we see all the events, and now we just see the operative set. So we can see that this servlet request was actually done by servlet request run invocation. We did some, I guess, EGB operations. We started some database stuff here. We started a transaction, blah, 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 blah. So we see what was going on in the transaction. Also, since we have a lot of information from the operating system and the runtime itself, we can select to see all events that were happening concurrently. So in the same thread during the same time. Then things are going to pop up like file writes, GC requests, etc. So you can drill down from there. Right. So I'm not going to, I think, have time to show you that much more from that part of Flight Recorder, but something that is not commonly known is that the Smurfs have a market. It's called the SMX, the Smurfberry Exchange. And the Smurfberry Exchange, Brainy Smurf decided that he wanted to have his own custom events for the Smurfberry Exchange. So I'm going to show you how you can build your own GUI from within Mission Control for custom events. And this is not supported either. So the event creation is not supported. Then one thing should be said about those APIs. So when we ported the Java APIs to record stuff into Flight Recorder, we ported it straight from JRockit. We didn't change the APIs, but we deprecated every single one of them. Okay? So if you look at it in HotSpot, we actually have the APIs there, and you can use them. And there are other teams within Oracle that are using them, so I don't think they're going to just change overnight either. So, if you want to play with them, I actually think you should. Also, the GUI builder from within Mission Control is not supported either, but that's more because there are some usability kinks that we wanted to iron out before we start supporting it. So that should be pretty safe to use as well. I'm going to work offline. Okay, so I'm going to be starting. I'm going to be starting Mission Control from within my own development environment because I did some things with it last night. And here you go. There is a secret handshake with Mission Control. You can press Control 1 to get a command line interface to it. And there is a command called Enable Design View, which will give you access to the designer. Okay? So I'm going to open this recording, right? And so we're going to design a new user interface inside of Mission Control. I'm going to create a new group. Let's call it SMX. Name Smurf Berry Exchange. And I'm going to have a nice icon for that. And I'm going to have a nice small icon for that as well. Here we go. Placement path, yeah, probably somewhere low. Okay, so the Smurfberry Exchange, and we're going to have a tab there as well. I'm just going to call that, yeah, whatever, my SMX tab. I'm going to have a name, SMX price, for instance. And you should really have descriptions and everything, but I'm going to skip that today. Here you go, loading the recording again. And we have a Smurfberry Exchange tab group. And I'm going to stop that tab, and I'm going to add a chart to it. I'm going to base the data on the data series from the recording, transaction entry, and I'm going to go plotting the price. Like this. So, what we can see is that the Smurfs economy is doing quite well. It's steadily increasing here over time, but we can also see when we start analyzing the recording itself that letting Lazy Smurf do the login framework was probably a very bad idea. Because we have the same problem here that we had in one of the previous recording I was shown. So it seems the same logger is being used and it has the same issue that we had before. So if we fix that in exactly the same way we did before, and open up a recording where it is fixed, we are going to see that the transactions are now, happily running along. So we're doing these transactions at a much faster pace, and the only thing that prohibits us from going faster is now the Java sleeps that were sort of simulating the things were taking a little bit of time. And we could get rid of that too, probably by queuing up these loggings, the logging of these strings. Okay, so there's just one problem with all of this, and that is that Brainy Smurf decided to go into algorithmic trading, and the Smurf economy is now totally screwed. So, boom, crash. Okay, so that's the example for how you actually extend Mission Control, supporting your own custom events. So I told you about the online heap analysis tool. So sometimes it's just not very convenient or even possible to analyze the heap through a heap dump, hprof dump. You might have a very, very large heap on a production server system, and you have your tiny MacBook Air from last year, which only comes with 4 gigs of memory, which I have, and so it might be problematic to just do that analysis properly. Also, there might be sort of an interactive workflow that sort of gets lost if you don't have an interactive tool that you can have hooked up online and do your analysis with. So we have this online heap analysis tool. The problem is we are not porting this to in time for JDK 8. So unfortunately, we will not have this available until JDK 9 at the earliest. So Very sorry about that. It is one of my favorite tools personally for finding bugs in interactive applications. It's very powerful. I don't think I'm going to have time to show you Memleak though. So if you're interested, you can come to me afterwards, and I'll show you. Right. Then there are the experimental plugins. So we do have plugins that we ship, but not part of the Mission Control suite. But they're available from within the tool itself. You can just download them into the tool. And you saw the WLS plugin, but there is a dtrace plugin as well. So we have extended the dscript language with our own syntax for emitting events, so that we can emit events that are self-describing, so that we can read them into a coherent model and show them in a GUI. It's very similar to the one we're using for Flight Recorder. And we have a new tool which is called JOverflow, which is a tool for analyzing heap waste. So there are various ways you can waste your heap. You can have duplicate strings, you can have, you could have, well, there are more ways. You'll see soon. Anyways, so it uses hprof dumps, and it's our very first stab at using JavaFX inside of a plugin for Java Mission Control. So I'm going to do some demos of these tools as well. So dtrace, gonna have to start up Eclipse again. So we actually used Xtext for this, and if you haven't tried out Xtext, you should. It's pretty cool. So in our case, we have syntax highlighting and support for this new language that we have. So here is how it looks with metadata definitions for different templates, and we can jump to the different probe sets. So probe set is a group of probes that you can enable and disable in the GUI when you want to do a dtrace recording. You can jump like this. Oops. And here we can see that the IO probe set consists of 2 probes, the read IO and write IO. And there is even well, this is, you should recognize from dscript, right? And you can see that we have the extends keyword here so that we can inherit capabilities as well. And when you start analyzing the resulting recordings, you'll see that it's pretty much the same. So let's look at this one. So, for instance, here you go. Our example with the logger, but in dtrace. And the same thing holds. So, if you do want to extend this yourselves, you can do it in exactly the same way as I did with the Smurf example. So, you can just emit your own events, read them up into Mission Control, create your own GUIs very, very easily, and have them visualized. And once you're done creating your own GUIs, you can export them as plugins. So you can just have your colleagues drop them into the plugins folder, and voila, they have the exact same GUI themselves. So that is the dtrace support. And I am going to do a JOverflow demo as well. So if you were at Misha's and JoAnn's talk on Monday, you've already seen this. If you haven't, well, and you'll see a little bit of it now. So to do with the new Mission Control, to do a heap dump analysis, just select Show Heap Analysis, and it does a hprof dump and brings up the GUI, which is in JavaFX. Yay! So it's maybe not that interesting to just do a dump on Mission Control idle, so let's do a dump of Mission Control doing a analysis. here you go. And this is the kind of overhead analysis that we do. So we can see that we have duplicate arrays. Selecting the duplicate arrays shows us that, well, there seem to be 2 objects that are JavaFX related, so we probably can't do too much about exactly that one. So let's look at the small collections. Well, in the small collections, it seems like we do have a bunch of them, 28,000 of them, little array lists that we have created in our own code. So we could probably exchange those for arrays and save a lot of memory. And I'm going to open a recording from an old Eclipse running an old version of Mission Control. And have a little look at that one as well. So here we can see again that we have a duplicate arrays. Selecting to look at those, we can see that, okay, so this pretty much looks like uninitialized images, so once we start drawing a little bit, those might be safe. Might not be a problem, so let's not look at those ones. We do have duplicate strings though. And we have the duplicate string user 2,155 times. So let's look at that one. It seems like the Oracle Eclipse core runtime path segments has quite a lot of them. So let's select that path segment. Let's clear out the users selection and see that, then we can see that there are a whole lot of them that are duplicate strings referenced from path segments in Eclipse. So if we started interning stuff, and they probably did in a later version of Eclipse because we didn't see this problem when we started looking at just ourselves before, we would probably save a lot of memory. Sorry, what? What version of Eclipse this was on? I think 3.6 or 7. And we are running it on a build of Mission Control based on the 3.8 platform. Anyways, we also have a lot of small collections, and you can see that, you know, in Mission Control we have a lot of things going on in the settings class where we're wasting quite a lot of memory as well. So, selecting the settings and properties, we can see that we have linked hash maps, lots of them. 17,659 that are considered, well, have a lot of different problems. They are considered small, they are sparse, there are some that aren't used at all, ever. So there's probably a lot we can do there as well. So I'm going to want to have some time for questions afterwards, so I'm going to end the dtrace demo there. Sorry, the JOverflow demo there. If you want to know more about JOverflow, we can talk afterwards. So, yes, please.
So, you seem to be doing your demo on a Windows VM. Are you going to develop on a Mac?
Oh, yes. Yes, and I can't wait myself because I own a Mac that I'm running Windows on. So, no, really, we have builds for Mac, and 5.1 is available for Mac. So we are doing builds for Mac, and the only reason that I'm always demoing these things on Windows is that JRockit still has the edge when it comes in terms of events being available within the runtime itself. So JRockit still has the more events. It's more interesting to analyze flight recorder recordings coming out of JRockit. That is going to change, though. Yeah, absolutely. So flight recorder. So as I said, in 7U4 we have the flight recorder. So everything. Well, you probably wouldn't want to use the 7U4 version of the Mac flight recorder, but 7U6 and forward, you can start using these APIs, and you can start using Mission Control as well. Absolutely.
So like in Linux or so, is the 7U4 has those events? I mean, memory etc. data that you showed.
No, so unfortunately, and that's the reason.
Memory is there, but not the events.
Exactly. So the recording engine is in there, but not all the hooks and all the events. So that is the reason why we haven't released the GUI as part of the JDK yet. We will. So as soon as we get to the critical mass of events, so that it is useful for the Java SC crowd, that includes me, to use this, we are going to release it to everybody. But we are not quite there yet, and that's why we're holding off.
There's a lot of, I guess, curious overlap between this and, say, the Eclipse Memory Analyzer tool, which does some of the same sort of waste and heap analysis, and also with Visual VM. And I'm just wondering about, I mean, some of those, obviously, the memory analyzers from another group, but Visual VM is also from a new part of Oracle now, and obviously one's based on Memleak platform, one's based on Eclipse, but they both can use OSGI now. Is there any convergence so that you can just bring up Visual VM and read the mission control data or something and not have to juggle all these different disparate pieces?
I know, and I'm very sorry about that. No, there really aren't that. So, in Mission Control, we have started looking at NetBeans a little bit, but there are no concrete plans for merging Visual VM and Mission Control, which I personally think is a little bit sad, because I mean it's better if everybody can learn one set of tooling and one paradigm for looking at things. But but there is a big difference though. An important difference is that Visual VM is for free, right? And the Mission Control Tool Suite is for free in development, but I won't get any salary if there are no licenses for it.
One could imagine that being a paid add-on though.
Yeah, I know. So you know, I think there is going to be a discussion and there might be a way forward, but for now, we're just focusing on making sure that we build a kick-ass mission control for that everybody can start using. Yep.
So how does this work technically? Is the flight recorder a library which stands in parallel to libJVM, and the libJVM calls into it for recording the events? Or?
Yeah, so there is library and there are hooks. And the recording engine is in the closed source.
So the flight recorder is the recording engine?
So the flight recorder is the recording engine, yes. Well, we interchangeably talk about flight recorder as being the tools that are,
that's why I say the technical view. So, and the probes in the hotspot, they are in the open.
Yes, some of them, yes.
They call into the flight recorder if it's there, or in the flight recorder library if it's available. Does it work like this? Or?
Yes. I'm not sure. In the back there, I think.
So, the fact that you can create your own custom into the flight recorder, is that API actually documented?
Nope. It's not documented, it's not supported, but it's useful.
So how do we go about writing events? Other than the single site?
You don't. So that was my sort of gift for you if you wanted to start playing with this. There will eventually be a new, improved, and better API that is hopefully going to be supported that you can use to produce events. But this I did so that you could start looking at it, and it's quite powerful and useful when you want to solve problems. So
you should be able to look into the hotspot and see how it calls the flight recorder.
Yep.
The Oracle Enterprise Manager as a JVM diagnostics, is this the same tool or something?
No. So I think, if I remember correctly, that the JVM diagnostics is using was at least using some proprietary JMX APIs that we had in JRockit. So no, this is not the same thing. The Q&A, can we just hold on a little bit longer? I just want to get through the last couple of slides. So the JRockit is free now, so if you want to start trying out this technology, it's already there. It's there in the JRockit forum, which is quite similar to what we're going to get in HotSpot. So you can start trying it out right away. It's free for development, and take it for a spin and send me feedback. I really want to know what you guys want this to be able to do. And this is my Twitter handle, Marcus Hurt, and I have a blog on hurt.se/blog. And yeah, shameless book plug. I wrote a book together with a friend of mine named Marcus, which is really about adaptively optimizing runtimes in general. So it's applicable to HotSpot, and it also talks at length about the different tooling in Mission Control as well. So it can be useful if you want to look at this. So now we can do questions.
You showed that you opened flight recorder recordings from the tool.
Yep.
But where does it, when you start the VM, enable the flight recorder, where does it store that data, and sort of what's the size and space of it for that?
Okay, so it stores it in thread local buffers, the events, and when those get full, we copy them to a circular configuration of global buffers, and when those get full, depending on how you configure this, we either continuously overwrite them, or if you have configured them to be emitted to disk, we emit them to disk. So you can choose that yourself.
So, you showed pretty detailed pictures. When you open the recording, it has
Yep.
all the threads and the stack traces and all that.
Yeah.
So what sort of, if I record things for an hour, what
Yeah.
sort of...
How large do they get?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the most common...
Ideally, you would want to keep it running because you don't know when the problem
Exactly,
is, right?
but that's
So-
why you configure it in a circular fashion, right? So at least you have the last couple of minutes worth of data, but you don't keep everything around. There are some people who really want to keep everything around, but it's going to be quite a lot of data. So
say for 1 minute, what's I know it depends on the thread count and everything.
and it also depends on what events are available and what sort of events are turned on, etc., etc., etc. So it's really hard to
Events specifically
on and off, because there are some events that you usually might want to turn off that can be a little bit more expensive than others. So for instance, the events that are calculating heap fragmentation, for instance, will cause a mark face in the garbage collector. So if you really want the lowest overhead possible, you might want to switch those off.
But in general, what's the worst case
So let me put it this way. The standard templates that you get, I really don't know. I'm just guessing wildly. Maybe like 20 megs a minute, I don't know. But if you turn everything on, and if you lower the thresholds for all the events to nothing, then you're going to have a very bad impact on the system, for sure. So,
and can you, given that that's the case, can you sort of it's recording all the time and throwing things out?
yeah.
Some sort of trigger where you then dump the...
Absolutely, and you can do that from Mission Control. If you're using the management console, for instance, it has rules. So you can say, as a rule, when this happens, trigger a dump, and dump what's available in the continuously going recording. So yeah, you can do that. And you can also script this. The JCommand utility that is available from 7U4 can actually do dumps, right? So
Generally, the rules can they apply sort of on all the events?
no. So the rules in the Mission Control console is actually for JMX. So anything that is exposed as a JMX attribute, you can do this for. But we're currently not, even if it's possible. It's really a sort of, it's, as I said, it's pretty much like a MPEG stream. If you configure these chunks to be small enough, you could really see yourself continuously transferring them to the client and having a
The thing is
online
if
tool.
It's 3 a.m. at the night and something happened, you have to have somebody to
Dump it. Yes, and that is exactly what WLS is doing with their diagnostic suite. So when they do a diagnostic image, that's what they call it, they actually dump what's available in the flight recorder as well. So they have different probes. It's really like 4 or 5 things that you want to look at on the running system, not more really. You see the live set going up. If it goes too high, then you probably want to dump. You can see if you're...
That's harder to trigger. Is it something like that, that doesn't
Yeah.
always get
Yeah,
high CPU,
that's-
no high memory, but still the system is
Yeah.
solid. That's
Absolutely.
harder to-
That is much harder.
Yeah.
But
And those are rare. So
yeah.
most of the memory leaks or memory overhead you get on peak hours and things
Yep.
like that. But the head ones are like random.
Yep, that's much harder. So maybe you would.
Be able to do
So,
that
so maybe you would. So maybe you would want a script that is continuously dumping what's in flight recorder, or just configure it to keep the data around. I mean, that is possible. Definitely. Yes.
So what's the difference? I mean, there are some tools which use bytecode instrumentation to monitor the system.
Yeah.
How this tool differs from those bytecode instrumentation?
Okay. So most of the bytecode instrumentation ones are. They need to extract the data from different data sources, right? They might be doing things like capturing the method entries and exit of every method, or they might be just doing that for a certain set of methods. But there are a lot of things that you really can't do unless you are privy to the internals of the JVM. So there are some things that we can get that very, very much cheaper. But bytecode instrumentation is a pretty good way to do things as well. It all depends on what you want to do. We are thinking of maybe using bytecode instrumentation ourselves. We are actually using bytecode instrumentation in Mission Control Client. We are actually generating for every event to not to have the extra 12 bytes for the object header for the array. We're actually generating classes for the event types just to maximize the amount of memory that we can keep for events, right? So bytecode instrumentation is quite cool, and you can do a lot of funny things with it. Definitely, and we have been thinking of using BCI for a sort of way to deliver probe points. So, for every method that has this name, please put in wrap it with a flight recorder event that looks like this. So things like that. Yep, I think it was a little bit faster.
Some way to prevent some kind of context from the diagram together. For example, sense of business application, right?
Okay.
You have you can think of some kind of business transaction, right?
Yeah.
Which can be executed in JVM even in different threads.
Right.
So is there any way, possibility, let's say, I saw in your presentation, like you can analyze threads, right?
Yeah,
Like
sure.
Events, like the thread, but is there any way to group events from different threads, which
Absolutely.
which,
Absolutely.
some kind of
So-
set up a context to events and then
Yeah.
analyze by context?
Absolutely. If you're looking at the bottom tab group, which was called events, all these different tabs in that tab group is all about doing free form analysis of the events. And you have a few pretty powerful tools available to you. So the histogram that I showed, where we were actually building a histogram on all the thread, the lock addresses, right? The monitor addresses. You can do things like that, and then use the operative set to take everything that matches whatever conditions you are looking for, and put those events in a big bag, bring it to the next filter, and might be per threads or whatever, and filter out all the events that was matching the first, plus just being a part of these threads, and then go to the, So there are all these different very general views that you can use to in a very generic fashion, home in on the set of events that you want to do an analysis for.
Is any guy available to extract the information out
Yeah,
of, because let's
absolutely.
say if I
There's-
have my own management tool,
Yeah.
like for my business application,
Yeah.
so I kind of tracking my business information.
Yes. So there are
Any way to
absolutely there are
who can then extract that information and
Yep.
present it in my tool instead
Yes. There are two different ones, right? So there is one where you, which is the reference parser, which is included, I think, in the JDK as well, which basically parses everything and spits out an XML file, right? But it's going to be huge. And and then there is the parser that is built into JRockit Mission Control, which is very specifically tuned for the use case of mission control. So, and I don't think we are publicly supporting using that parser. but in many ways it's much better. so we
Are you going to port it to HotSpot or?
which one?
I mean, parser.
Oh, the parser. No, it's not going to be part of the JDK, but I have been thinking of maybe making it as a plugin that anybody could use.
Between the JRockit flight recording and the HotSpot flight.
Yeah, so the binary format of the recordings are compatible between JRockit and HotSpot. They are even so compatible that we were sort of asked by product management to not support the old JRockit recordings in our new tool, even if it was perfectly possible and plausible. So internally at Oracle, we have an internal update site, which is automatically available if you have, .oracle.com in your host name, where you can download a plugin that lets you open old JRockit recordings in the new tool. So yeah, product management.
Q4, is there any JVM event available for the flight recorder, or it's not yet?
So what? Is
Update 4,
Update
7.4, is there any events? I mean,
Yeah, there are some metadata events about the recording itself. So when it was started, things like that. And then there are thread starts and thread stops, and that's it.
and so,
Not very useful.
Do you think it's going to be, I know you can tell the time, but is it sort of for 7 update or is for 8?
That is being debated. So the original plan was for 7 update, but there has been some something else happening that we need to take, first. So it might actually be a little bit later than we hope for, but I'm really hoping for next year it should be there. Otherwise, I'm going to quit.
But you said it's available now for the budget customers.
Oh, and for every Oracle customer that has access, I think, to my Oracle support. So you can download the tool, and you can play with the APIs, you can produce your own recordings, and use the tooling to...
For development, right? It's for production.
It's for production, you need a license. If you use in development, it's just, go ahead.
One quick question. What's
Yes.
the future of JRockit?
Good. For good. So that's sad, but that is true. So we are...
Do you think there's anything in JRockit? I mean, you showed what's coming to HotSpot. Do you feel that there are other things that unique to JRockit that can come in future? I mean, beyond what you showed, is there anything left?
That will come for JRockit? Or
No, from HotSpot. I mean, there's other things. Unique things you feel that.
Okay, so there are more features from JRockit that might be. Yeah, I had a little dot, so an ellipsis vertical, that sort of indicates that maybe, yeah. But
I'm very interested in your Memleak tool.
Oh,
The reason is I am using actually JRockit in my company.
Oh.
And what's happening is we got a Memleak issue, and we had like 700 meg of heap, which we had to bump up to 1.5 gig in order to stay in the limit. And it was going up. So I was doing that.
But was it continuously leaking over time? I mean, is the live set going up, or is it just that you need to bump the to?
What happened was we had the session timeout for 60 minutes, and if we keep that way, it continuously goes up and it eventually goes out of the memory.
Okay.
However, we take it down to 20 minutes and bump up the heap size to 1.5 gig, and then it got stable.
Okay, interesting. You should log that as a bug report probably. But
It is a bug.
But anyways, you can use Mission Control for finding memory leaks. Actually, when we were doing the JOverflow prototype, we were heavily using the Memleak tool to limit some damaging effects of embedding JavaFX into SWT. So it was very useful.
Is it possible
I think you were first, right?
I've got a question. What about hardware events? Do you have any plans to add hardware events to it?
What events?
Hardware events.
Anything is possible.
Yes.
But I'm not going to promise anything. Also, well, are there any specific? Because, as I said, are you running on Solaris by the way in Linux?
Preferably on my Mac. So
On your Mac?
I'll wait until you release it on I miss Shark.
Okay.
I miss Shark from that.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know if you ever used it. You had mixed stack frames support and everything like that.
Okay.
And I could analyze my CPU stalls and all that.
Okay.
I'm desperately looking for a tool to replace it.
That's not really what we are doing. So what we want to do is to help you by having the dtrace tool there, right? Because you have dtrace in Mac. So what you could do is just to pick up the latest version of Mission Control out there, the 4.1, and it has a few issues that will be fixed in 5.2, which you won't have in like a year or so. But you could probably live with that and use that tool to define your own probes and visualize them in Mission Control. Just click around and build your own GUIs around them. And there you go, Pronto, a CPU scheduler. You can see what threads are actually scheduled on what CPUs, etc. It's very easy to build it yourself. So, yeah.
What about nameplates for stack frames? Would you be adding them at any stage?
I don't think so. We actually had, I had it in JRockit, but I don't quite remember. We did have native, but only the top native. Right? I don't remember. Sorry. Right now we are focusing on making sure that we solve the Java level problems, and we have a good way of exposing those, showing them off to end users. And we're going to take the most commonly ones, the ones that we think will be the most commonly occurring problems, and hit those first. But if you have some input to events that you think would help you a lot, email me, please, because then we want to make sure that we solve those problems as well.
So the library that contains the event API for the flight recorder, what build is it in?
The HotSpot, the Oracle.
So just 7 update 4 and onwards will find it
Yeah.
in the jar files.
So just download your 7.4 and it's going to do
So rt.jar or something?
so the Java APIs are in the rt.jar, yes. Again, 7.4 is probably not the best one to start with because we.
Sure. Yeah.
So if I download, the JRockit Mission Control from Oracle site, can I use it against both JRockit and JD HotSpot, or
No, so there are different ones. We have separated them, even though it technically should be possible. There are different ones. So you use the 4.x line on Mission Control with JRockit, and use the 5.x one.
But is the 5.x available on support right now?
Yes, it is. So the 5.1 is on.
So, just a question, you said a lot of the things that you're exposing is internal to JVM. So, the work that's left for the events for flight recorder, are those like you have to add things into JVM now, or basically exposing them to flight recorder?
It has some kind of events too.
The biggest work we have left is that adding new, just exposing them, or adding specific features to JVM so that it can record.
No, because so we also want to support the use case where Mission Control can be used by JVM developers and support staff at Oracle, right? So we do want to expose things like, things that can be helpful for tuning a certain garbage collector, etc. And then when you need them is things that are already there, metrics from that garbage collector. So. And in some cases, we need to do something that hasn't been possible with HotSpot before, so we need to do some bigger work.
So which one is your bigger sort of work right now?
I'd say a lot of the events are mostly just transforming data so that it can be and also there are some OS-level events, for instance, available in JRockit, where we actually have native implementation already in JRockit. But with JRockit, we didn't have Mac support, so that job is like, we take the native implementation from JRockit, we massage it a little bit maybe, and then we have for Windows, Linux, and Solaris, and then we need to do new implementation for Mac. That's the word, right?
This may be out of the topic, but what's the difference between a G1 collector and JRockit collector?
Oh,
are they the same? Are they different? What are they? No, because they all operate on a single heap region, right? Because the concept here is both are operating on a single.
I mean,
Well,
IBM
JVM
also
splits
has
it
the
up
same
in,
thing.
like,
I mean, the implementation of all of them are, I think, completely different.
Yeah, so they are very different. Yeah.
It's such a complex problem, even if the idea is same. Implementation.
Yes, but so the from a user perspective, I guess you could say that the G1 is really geared towards really large heaps.
Large heaps.
And if you mean the garbage collector, the JRockit runtime one, sorry, the real-time one, then it is actually not that heavily geared towards handling large heaps, but making sure that if you have a reasonable heap, you have a really, really short pause time. So
I think G1 is more closer to balance, not JRockit. JRockit one is like really small pause time. G1 doesn't try to be that pause time.
Exactly. So.
I have a question about licensing, right?
Licensing.
So,
I think you're talking to the wrong guy. I try to help.
well, I tried to ask my sales guys, but there's so much change going on in the product, right?
Yeah.
So, if you like to, it looks like JRockit is going to be, the features of JRockit that are going to be in the JDK.
Yep.
They'll be free, like pretty much production and non-production.
So some of the features are going to be free. So some features like some of the JMX APIs, we've actually donated to OpenJDK straight off the bat. Here you go. Now you can do get allocated bytes per thread. Yeah. But there are some things that we're keeping closed because we want to have to license them.
So this is separate downloading schedule.
No, you have the OpenJDK downloads, and then you have the some Oracle builds of the JVM.
Will be in the Oracle build. You can.
So yeah, you can just pick the commercial build and yeah.
Sorry.
Yes.
Is it available in OpenJDK?
Sorry, what is?
Is it available in OpenJDK?
Is the beta? Sorry.
Available.
Yeah, available in the OpenJDK. So no, the recorder part isn't. So the flight recorder is not a part of the OpenJDK. It's part of Oracle's closed. To donate it to OpenJDK? No, currently not. No. I mean, it's like at EclipseCon, I think 2 years ago, there was Dibert and Mark Reinhold had this big, fun thing going on the stage during a keynote when they were saying like, yeah, IBM is going to keep competing with Oracle regarding the JVM implementations, and that is going to be good for everyone. There are going to be new features, etc., blah, blah, blah. And that is exactly what is happening now, right? JRockit has always been a commercial JVM. It's always been licensed. And OpenJDK has always been free. So we are basically taking a part of JRockit and putting it into the closed offering, the commercial offering. And we have donated some of it to OpenJDK, but some of it we're keeping to finance the development of even more cool things.
The immediate question there would be, what other bits are being moved in there other than the mission control?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of...
It's being kept from JRockit.
Yeah, so it's usually not the case that we just port things straight off. Sometimes there is, but and sometimes we just look very hard at what the JRockit source look like, and then we take it pretty much the same way to HotSpot. But then sometimes we just take the idea and the concepts of JRockit and re-implement it, because HotSpot is very different to what JRockit looked like. It's a very, very different piece of technology. Mark Reinhold just once said that every time we took a left, JRockit took a turn to the right. I mean, it's very different. So sometimes, like getting rid of the permgen, that is something that we are doing in the HotSpot base. We're not trying to.
Very central in the whole architecture, wasn't it?
So what?
The whole events, the cyclic buffer of events was very central, wasn't it, to the architecture?
In JRockit?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, that's actually okay.
No. This is something that we added on later. So, but not having a permgen was a design decision from like day one. So it has affected everything. Like it's been a big job to get rid of it in HotSpot. But it's a very good thing that they do. I was at EclipseCon this year, and the Xtext gang did a demo, and I love Xtext. But they had forgotten to set the permanent generation high enough, so they just crash. And it's like, no, you shouldn't have to care about those things. I mean, it's not something you should need to know beforehand, how much classes you're going to generate or how much strings you're going to intern or whatever. It's like,
how about gen garbage collects? You would have thought of it. I mean, if it's permanent, then it doesn't need collection.
Yeah. So I think that is one of the features that I'm anxiously awaiting from HotSpot. Yeah.
Just a follow-up to the licensing question. Sorry. So you know, it used to be that if you got a logic, right, you got JRockit license product, right?
Yeah, so that's going to remain the same, I think. If you own WebLogic server, you're going to have this available to you for free.
VM is free to run in production.
Hang on a second. So
I think so, yeah.
We have applications that don't use WebLogic, right?
Okay.
We want to license Java separately, independent of WebLogic, right? And we want to get all these features independent of WebLogic. Is that a product of Java Plus or something, or what do we ask for?
Oh yeah, it's called Java.
Suite or something. I mean, there's a Java and
It's a Java something suite where you can license this. Yes. Okay. So we went straight to questions, but thank you so much.